So hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for Celeste's wonderful talk. I'm really excited about the topic that she chose. I love it. And let me tell you about what's coming up for AFAN. We have the transit talk on Sunday, November the 6th. We hope Celeste is there. We're always hoping Celeste will join us every time we have transit talk. But everybody's welcome. This is an opportunity to chat about current affairs. I like it very much. I think it's fun. And also remember that we have a free magazine. We have 2 quarterlies available for members. So check that out. And okay, I'm going to present Celeste. She is the founder and principal astrologer at Astrology by Celeste, LLC, where she offers personal readings, horary consultation, cosmic success coaching, group events, and classes. Before transitioning into astrology full-time, she had a successful sales and marketing career at Fortune 500 companies, spanning over 25 years. She has an undergraduate degree in integrative biology from UC Berkeley and an MBA, from St. Mary's. Sorry, can't see the last.
College.
College. Just couldn't see the last word. So Celeste, welcome. I'm going to mute myself. I'll be reading the questions in the chat box. And you're free to share your screen and begin your presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Maria. And I do want to share with everyone that the transit talks are so great. It's an intimate environment and interactive, and we have wonderful conversations about, current astrology. I always learn.
We don't record them, so they're really intimate, okay? Just for those who are present.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. Well, welcome everyone. My talk is Moon Phase Families. And yeah, I don't know if you want to am I spotlighted, Maria?
Again, can you repeat that?
Am I spotlighted?
No,
if you go to participants.
Yes.
And then there's a thing that you can select to spotlight me, because I see you as I'm talking. So I don't know if it will record. There you go. There. Thank you. Great. Well, thank you for the great introduction. I will just say that I'm a Taurus sun. So I like to, just supply practical information that's grounded and useful. I'm an Aries moon, so I like it always to be inspirational and to challenge people to, push themselves to achieve things they maybe thought weren't possible, as well as have fun. And Cancer rising, so I like to have a very consultative approach and make people feel held in a safe space. Yeah. Oh, and I have 5 planets in the 11th house of friends, groups, and, hopes and dreams and all that. So these are some of my astrology teachers that I wanted to point out, and I wouldn't be here without them. So Leslie McGurk is an astrologer out of Florida. And Rebecca Gordon, I've taken all of her classes, the New York City astrologer, and Deborah Silverman, I've taken her school. And I've done private tutoring with Ann Ortley, as well as I took the horary course for STA, the School of Traditional Astrology, which is absolutely wonderful. And Wade Caves is one of the teachers. He's an amazing astrologer. So yeah. Great. So I'm going to talk about the moon phases, just some basics about the moon phases, just to make sure we're all have a basic understanding of that. And then we'll get into the moon phase families and my astrology and action stories called A Tale of Two Kings, to demonstrate how the technique shows up. So I love this quote: aim for this moon, and if you miss, you may hit a star. So being a Cancer rising, I feel a very intimate connection with the moon, and working with her and her cycles has helped my life immensely. And, you know, the main thing about working with these moon cycles, both the 29-day cycles as well as these larger 27-month cycles, are about ultimately about making the unconscious conscious, because the moon rules our emotions, our reactivity, these habits and behaviors and subconscious things, also our needs and needing to feel safe and secure. And the sun rules our identity and our conscious mind and our ego and what we want and our outward expression. So each month when there is a new moon, the sun and the moon come together at the same degree and whisper secrets to each other about what they want to birth in our lives. And when we work with them intentionally, we can really accelerate our manifestation. So the great thing about these is that they're symbolic of growth and decay. In our modern society, there's so much just like go, 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 go. We live in such a solar focused society that we take no time to like rest and reflect and you know, let things discharge and start again, which this is, you know, how the life cycle works. And yeah, these cycles are predictable. We know when there's going to be a new moon, where degree it's going to be in 1,000 years or 1,000 years ago. So I love being a Taurus. I love the predictability of these cycles. Yeah. And yeah, each month they typically, the new moon is in a different sign of the zodiac, although they're duplicates, sometimes twice, sometimes once a year. But anyway, we have an opportunity to experience a new start and the archetypal signature of each sign each month. So a new energy typically maybe in a new house in our chart, where working with them intentionally can really help grow our lives and bring things to us that we want to manifest. Yeah. So there are 8 cycles of the moon, but I focus on personally in my life and what I teach about, you know, we live such busy lives that if you just make time to really focus on the 4 main hard aspects, that can be really beneficial to you. So when the new moon happens and seeds are planted in the dark and the story begins, you can set intentions about what you want to grow in your life. And I usually let a little light come in before I set intentions, because the sky is dark at the new moon. And then when the sun and the moon are in a 90-degree hard aspect, we have that first quarter moon about 7 days after the new moon. And it's a crisis of action where, like, internally, even if you aren't working with it intentionally, this is times where we can make decisions and the story's visible and we can see some of the problems and we can figure out, if you've set intentions, what we want to release or what we want to focus on. Sometimes we dream big and we need to narrow things down. We want to walk 10,000 steps. We only have time for 8,000. So we adjust as we move forward. If, you know, walking 10,000 steps was your goal for a moon cycle. Yeah. And then at the full moon, this opposition where the sun and the moon are opposite each other, all is revealed. And it's a very external time where, you know, you make your plans public, emotions run high, bus drivers, police officers, you know, people in ERs know that they need to be prepared for people to be acting, you know, more emotionally at the full moon, because this is a time where people's emotions are revved up and it's time to release, forgive, launch things, all sorts of things like that. And then the week after that, there's this last quarter moon, where again, we see that half moon in the sky. So there's this edge to it, but instead of a crisis of action, it's more about consciousness. So it's a psychological integration of what came before these, you know, 3 weeks before. So like at the full moon, if you celebrated that for 2 weeks, you'd been walking 8,000 steps and maybe one day you did 9,000, I don't know, whatever. Then at the last quarter moon, you can make decisions. Like if you're like kind of just doing it you're feeling it, and your pants feel better and all this kind of stuff, and you're whatever, you're sleeping better. So you've got that in psychological understanding about how the work you put in is manifesting in your life at this time. You can find wisdom, reap rewards, like, you look cuter in your outfit, or consequences, say you only walked 2,000 steps and you didn't get anywhere. That would be the consequence side of that. So are there any questions, Maria, before I go on?
No questions.
Okay, great. Well, now to get into, so that's the basics of the moon cycles, but a month is not enough time to do anything of, huge consequence. So I love these moon phase families, which give us this larger cycle to work with. And they were discovered by the astrologer Dietrich Pessin in her work. She noticed that there were these growing cycles over 27 months, where her clients were seeing stories that have pivot points. So a lot of times major events in your life will have like 4 primary stages that will correlate to these cycles, especially when your chart is activated. So by activated, the moon is near one of your planets, especially one of your personal planets like the sun, moon, Mercury, Mars, or Venus, or one of your points like your ascendant, midheaven, descendant, or IC, or the nodes as well. Now you can see this as well potentially with asteroids or other things, but I've seen most of, or outer planets, but I've seen it mostly with the personal planets. So what will happen will be there will be a new moon at approximately a degree, let's say, 10 degrees of Aries. 9 months later, there'll be a first quarter moon where the sun will be in 9 months. The sun will be in Libra. No, wait. 9 months later, there'll be a first quarter. Cancer. Thank you. Sorry.
The sun won't be in Cancer, no, but what happens is that the quarter moon will be in
Capricorn.
It will be a quarter moon in Aries. So we have the sun in Capricorn,
Capricorn,
and the quarter moon in Aries in the same degree.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. 9 months after Aries, there'll be a sun in Capricorn, but the moon will be at still approximately that 10 degrees of Aries. And then 9 months after that, it would be the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries. So that would be the full moon where all is revealed. And then 9 months later, there'd be the sun in Cancer, the moon in Aries at that last quarter moon. So typically they are always in, either the cardinal, fixed, or mutable signs when you have one of these cycles. And especially when they're like activating angles and things, they're really, really potent. So you will see, I've had clients see things around like things like properties, like something about like going on in their house or property, or things about inheritances or relationships, or like for me, my work when I retired early from my corporate career, the moon cycles were very activated even before I realized what exactly I was going to be doing. So you can use these cycles intentionally. And this is what I do when I start something. I think about, where do I want to be 9 months from now? And so recently I started my podcast, the Celestial Insights podcast, that offers weekly advice. You can get it on anywhere, Spotify, Amazon, all that kind of stuff, Apple. And that started at the solar eclipse, which was right on my sun in Taurus this past April 30th. And so I know, like I put in the stake, at 9 months when the sun is in Aquarius and there's that first quarter moon in Taurus, like, where am I going to be there? What decisions am I going to make? I might change the format. These are the kind of things you'll see coming up when you look at these. I might, start interviewing people. I don't know, something will be going on at that time. So you'll see something where there's a growth or a change or a pivot point with these cycles as they go on.
So maybe later you can share the link to the podcast, Celeste.
Oh, yes, I will.
At the end of the talk. I'll remind you, no worries.
Okay, I will. Okay, so this is, now sometimes they do cross over. They do cross over signs. So if you have an activation near the end of a sign, they sometimes cross over. This is the moon phase family that we're in now. They typically aren't more than 4 degrees away from each other. This one is this last one is a little wide, 6 degrees. So usually 5 degrees or less. Your chart is being activated in that same place with this growing, this growing cycle. So sometimes, and if you're looking at these, sometimes you don't see what started in the dark at the new moon because it's a dark sky and like just the seeds are being planted. But if you can't quite get back to the new moon, definitely look at the first quarter and the full moon activations to see if there's a story in your chart, especially if you have things late Cancer, early Leo, any planets or points. You can see these dates. And I say to, give a glow of like 2 weeks on either side to try to think and connect the story and like, let it be a little loose and flow. Yeah. And when I do my journaling, I journal. I take pictures I pull cards every morning, take a picture, and I journal. My journals are like the new moon was at blank degree of blank. And then the next week I start a new page, first quarter moon, full moon, last quarter moon. So for me, it's very easy to go back, flip back and see the 9-month story before what happened. And a lot of times there will be the same topic in the journal that I'm writing about that week. Yeah. And sometimes, yeah, some things like some bad habits and things like that, like nothing's changed. But so sometimes there's a real evolution, which I love to see. I always tell on myself. I think that's my Cancer rising. Yeah. Wait. Oh, no. Sorry. Okay. So for an example, so this is very simple. I mean, it's just, it is what it is. And on my Instagram at Astrology by Celeste, every week I post these cycles so that you can take a look at them and see if the degrees are impacting your chart, and you can see the story on Facebook and Instagram, but I'm mostly on Instagram. So I'm going to talk about Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom, and I'm calling this a tale of two kings because they're very public people. For people who don't know, Gavin Newsom is the governor of California. I assume everybody knows who Donald Trump is, but yeah, I love this parallel of their stories about around this same lunar cycle, because it is activating both of their charts. Yeah. And so you see the dates here, and this started with a solar eclipse. So on December 14th, 2020, there was that powerful solar eclipse in Sagittarius at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. And so you see that's near Donald Trump's moon at 21 degrees of Sagittarius in his 4th house. And it's at Gavin Newsom's IC Mars conjunction as well. Yeah, and then I'll talk about each of the things. So just let's talk a little bit about this eclipse. So this eclipse was a south node solar eclipse. So eclipses have a different flavor if they're at the north node or the south node. And we're actually getting ready to have a south node solar eclipse on Tuesday at 2 degrees Scorpio. So that'll be interesting. Yeah. So some things about this eclipse. I cast the chart for Washington, D.C., and I use the Placidus system, the house system. So very interesting that the ascendant was at 29 degrees of Aquarius, opposite 29 Leo, which is on the fixed star Regulus is on 29 Leo. At least it was when both Donald Trump and Gavin Newsom were born, and they both have Regulus prominent in their chart. For Trump, it's his ascendant Mars conjunction. For Gavin Newsom, it's on his Jupiter. Yeah. And the midheaven of this chart was at 12 degrees of Sagittarius. And this is the United States ascendant. If you look at the Sibley chart, which I mostly work with, is 12 degrees of Sagittarius. So this to me showed that it was going to be important for the people of the United States of America, this solar eclipse. So the North Node at this time was at 19 Gemini, which is conjunct Trump's Sun, Uranus, North Node conjunction, and Newsom's MC. So there was this eclipse in, deep in their fourth houses, but yeah, that also you see the fourth house of home, family, foundations. Also, you see has this public nature to it because the North Node was around their 10th houses. And I love Bernadette Brady's work with the fixed stars. And in her book about predictive astrology, she delineated all of the eclipses based on their Saros series. And eclipses there are two types of families, eclipses that have this repeating nature to them. One is the metonic cycle, where it's about every 19 years, you'll have an eclipse 4 or 5 that are at like the same degree on the same day. So the transits are different. So they may impact your chart differently, but you'll have some kind of story in that area of your chart. And then actually that's the 18-year cycle is the metonic, I believe. And then the 19-year cycle is this Saros series, where they start either at the North or the South Pole, and then it's either every 18 or 19 years, they move like 10 degrees and keep going for 1,300 years. And they get stronger as they get closer to the equator. But anyway, she delineated the birth chart of each of these eclipses, where they started at the North or the South Pole, and has given information on each of the eclipses. And I found them to be very relevant, and very interesting. So this Saros series was delineated. She said there's a sense of fatedness, and individuals may find themselves caught up in relationship events outside of their control. And Dietrich Pessin talks about the South Node solar eclipses as when you get a new beginning, but it's from a 7th house perspective. So the new beginning is from your perspective with the North Node. Like I started my podcast with the North Node, on my Sun. But this South Node nature of these, somebody else may initiate actions that impact your life, and they bring public exposure. Yeah, and people find themselves pulled into the drama of others with the South Node solar eclipses, she says, and external influences sometimes can be projected upon you. So keep that in mind as we move on, although you know what happened, a lot of this. Yeah. Any questions, Maria?
No, there are no questions.
Okay.
No questions, Celeste.
Okay. So here's Donald Trump. He's a Gemini sun, Sag moon, and a Leo rising. And yeah, he is such an incredible example of astrology. I mean, he truly lives his chart. He was born at a lunar eclipse, which a lot of presidents are born at lunar eclipses. We are, the sun and the moon opposite. People here have a big impact on the world. Eclipses, if you're born at an eclipse, eclipses tend to have a big impact in your own life. Yeah. And so he not only has the fixed star of Regulus, and Regulus is one of the royal fixed stars and is associated with, brings wealth. It's a star of kings, the star of kings and queens and whatnot, and brings abundance, wealth, power, military. It can bring military success and things, but can be limited. But with each of the royal Persian stars, there's a nemesis. And if you fall victim to the nemesis, you can have a great fall from grace. So they give great, wonderful things, but there can be a fall. And so for Regulus, it's the nemesis is vengeance. So people who take vengeful actions can have, a great big fall from grace. And we know, what happened with Donald Trump, and he really goes after all of his enemies, and he went from president of the United States to not even being able to tweet in a matter of days. So yeah, his midheaven is conjunct. So the most beneficial star, Regulus, on his ascendant, his midheaven is conjunct Algol, the most feared fixed star, which is the beheading star, associated with like Medusa, who could turn people into stone. But it also can be used for protection as well. But there's this, the actions on January 5th were, in a sense, could have beheaded democracy, so to speak. So you really see the Algolian nature of how he presents himself in the world, as well as the Uranus in the 10th house. Yeah, and he has the Sun, Uranus, Pluto parallel at the same declination. So someone very comfortable and desiring of power, and yeah, can use it to break things kind of with that Uranus. And I'm seeing more and more of my clients with stationary planets. So yeah, his Jupiter is stationary. So again, if you're born with one of your planets stationary, it tends to be very important in your life. And yeah, wealth, the accumulation of wealth has been a big thing for him. And yeah, he's got his Jupiter in an exact trine with Uranus, which the Magi astrologers call a super aspect. And that is the big fame super aspect. So yeah, he has got, been able to amass a lot of fame just from, years ago, from his being a real estate person. Yeah, he's a fascinating chart.
Celeste, there is a question by Darlene. She says, how will the eclipse affect Trump if he doesn't have any planets in Scorpio?
Yeah. So this eclipse in Scorpio, I think I'm seeing it more about being the lunar eclipse will be more impactful to him, more like things coming up. It's been fascinating to watch him, because the lunar eclipse in what do you call it, in May 15th was across his ascendant and across his midheaven and IC. The sun was at 25 Taurus, the moon at 25 Scorpio, squaring Saturn. So Saturn has been like opposing him, opposing his Mars, the actions he's taken, opposing, it hasn't gone to his ascendant yet, squaring his midheaven. So you see like all of the pressure Saturn he has been under about the actions he took while he was president. So I think this is an unfolding story, with the North Node and South Node being at the North Node at his midheaven, the South Node at his his IC Saturn like opposing his ascendant, this growing story was the nose travel through Scorpio and Taurus will be unfolding, you know, more and more as we move through this next, you know, year until they move. So yeah, I don't know if anything especially new is going to be seeded, as he does not have any planets within 4 degrees of any fixed signs, but there's this ongoing story about what he's already done that we'll see, you know, at the lunar eclipse and so forth.
Yeah, we have 2 more comments. Joran says Putin. I don't know what he means by that. Putin, what they mean by that. And then Karma says Saturn will square his MC on the 8th of November the 8th.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The lunar eclipse will be at 16 degrees of 16 degrees of Taurus, the sun 16 degrees of Scorpio, and Saturn at around, I think it's 18 still at that time. So yeah, that's what I see it impacting him. Is there another one, Maria?
No, no more questions.
Yeah. Yeah. So looking at the story that has been going on with him over this cycle. So at the solar eclipse on December 14th, 2020, that was the day that Joe Biden won the electoral college, and Trump invited his supporters by tweet to come to Washington, D.C. on January 6th. And so that, you know, set that action in motion. So all these people who like came to the Capitol, events were set in motion by someone else for them, you know, their president called them to come do whatever, and they came. Yeah. Now, 9 months after that, in September, the January 6th committee it really started revving up. Got the cycle was, you know, things were tightening in and in to Trump's circle, including his Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, and Republican Congress members were told to preserve their records. And at the full moon, you know, where the sun in his 10th house, moon in his 4th house, like this all is revealed kind of energy, the first public hearings were held for the January 6th committee. So yeah, this is all part of, you know, his January 6th story. We don't know what will happen at, oh, sorry, this should say last quarter. Shoot, I fixed it today. Sorry about that. We don't know what will happen. Will that be when the committee publishes his findings? Will he, you know, be held, you know, brought up on charges? I don't know. I mean, charges could come even at the lunar eclipse. I don't know. Eclipses can make things rush in faster than they otherwise will be. But I'm really looking forward to, you know, what happens around that time to see how, if there's something public about that story. Yeah. But since everybody knows about Trump and knows what he's been up to, I thought I'd present about Gavin Newsom. So he's the governor of California. He's a really interesting man. He grew up, he was born in a well-off family, but he's been a public servant his whole life. And he's got this Virgo rising with Pluto right next to same degree Pluto on his ascendant. So really comfortable with power and acquiring power, and very, very ambitious man. Yeah. He's a Libra sun, Capricorn moon, and a Virgo rising. And he's got all of his personal planets underneath the horizon. So there's this feeling like he could really it's very hidden. Like Trump is all out in the open and aggressive and all of that kind of stuff, where Gavin Newsom, he puts on this Libra Virgo, facade. He's very handsome, but he's tough as nails. He's got Mars square Pluto, and he's got Mars at his IC, his most private part in his chart. So, and he's got this grand trine and fire. So you could really feel like he's very energetic, very ambitious, but he presents himself as, he got caught up in a scandal years ago. But in general, he presents himself well. You see his Jupiter here is in the 12th house conjunct Regulus, as well as his Pallas Athene, the asteroid of strategy, is conjunct Regulus. And he's done some things that he's taken big risks, like he legalized same-sex marriage. He was the mayor of San Francisco, and he legalized same-sex marriage, years ago, before, he took some real strategic risks to follow his principles and to bring fairness, Libra. Yeah. So very interesting. And he has this focused yod to his Chiron in Pisces at the top, and then his Jupiter and his south node at the base. You can see in the yod. Hopefully you can see that. And it's a focus because Uranus is right opposite his Chiron. And the Magi astrologers also talk a lot about how Chiron is not just about, the wounded healer and your childhood wounds that you're constantly working on, but also about your career and your marriage. It can, so when people, and I've seen this over and over again, when people's Chirons are activated, it can be a symbol of like career changes or changes around relationships and things like that. So it feels like he's been pointed at in this lifetime to do, I wonder what this Chiron I wonder what that is. Yeah, maybe if he becomes president, he'll legalize drugs. I don't know, or marijuana countrywide or something like that. I don't know.
There's a comment by Karma. He says, Newsom has been promoting his policies and ambitions in other parts of the country with promotions behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's part of this story. Yeah. No, he definitely has big ambitions for himself. One thing that's interesting, I don't want to forget that he's a first quarter moon. And he's a exact first quarter moon, you see, at 16 Libra, 16 Capricorn. Yeah. So that could be like the Crusader. I think Stephen Forrest calls it, one of the archetypes can be, the Crusader, someone who is willing to take on and confront people and, make big changes for a cause kind of stuff. Yeah. So he was recalled, and this was big news, and this happens like every governor, people put together a petition to recall them, blah, blah, blah. And but this recall began when the sun was right at his midheaven and the north node in his 10th house. So the sun put a spotlight on his job performance. It was opposite his Mars. It was just an attack launched against him. And you see the north node at 29 is in at the anaretic, that karmic degree, and forming a T square with his Uranus Chiron opposition. Yeah. So to me, like this fated event, will it lead to a shocking wounding or what have you? And the Mars-Neptune conjunction at this time was opposite him, people trying to dissolve his power. It's the holy war transit. An action by an opponent could have led to his loss of power and identity, opposite is Pluto as well. Yeah. But, you know, nothing probably would not have gotten enough signatures had it not been for, this is when we were in COVID. And he went to the French Laundry, which is one of the premier restaurants in the country, very expensive. These lobbyists took him there. Everybody else in the state was home, sitting in their living room with a mask on. And he was out there at this fancy, swanky restaurant, you know, living it up. And so there was a reporter that exposed this dinner. And I feel like, you know, this South Node solar eclipse that was coming can be, you know, a very, someone else does something and then you get public exposure. Yeah. So at the time of the dinner, it was at a new moon conjunct his Neptune. And I find when people have moon activations to Neptune, something about their image, you know, Neptune being the planet of illusions and delusions, something about their image becomes changed in some way. It can be positive or it can be negative. And so that new moon to his Neptune changed the public's perception of him. And the North Node was now had moved to conjunct his midheaven. And I said, you know, it's the most expensive dinner he's ever had in his life. Yes, it was. And you can see Mars in Aries was in an exact square with his moon, Mars square moon. You know, the nourishment, Mars square moon can be something like people get food poisoning and things like that, or yeah, you ate something bad. Well, yeah, it really can really feel this. The actions he took, he's risking, you know, could have cut his relationship with his home and his job because he lives in the governor's mansion. And then this is the solar eclipse on December 14th, that same solar eclipse, where he signed an executive order in action in response to COVID. So like people had been let out a little bit. And then he did this executive action where all these restaurants had to close and things like that. People couldn't even eat outside. So this like brought, like people got very, very angry about this, especially like business owners and such. And that solar eclipse, you see it's conjunct his Mars, Vesta, South Node, not South Node, well, the South Node was here, Mars, Vesta, I see down here. So yeah. So as well as Jupiter, this was when the Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto were all together, and they were squaring his nodes at 28 and everything here. So it really felt like that fated events starting that could have affected his prosperity, authority, and power. And the recall stuff really gained a lot of steam around this time. So he was in hot water about that dinner, and then he does this. And you need like thousands and thousands of signatures to put something like this on a ballot. And it was gathered. So this was put on the ballot in order for him to have to face a recall election. And the recall election was 9 months to, you know, after. So this first quarter where the sun was at his ascendant, putting a spotlight on him, his identity, his brand, and the moon on his Mars, how he takes action next to his IC. Yeah. Yeah. And he really, I thought he was going to lose the election, frankly, but he won it by a landslide. But it was so interesting. One of the reasons I thought he was going to lose was because Neptune was exactly opposite his Pluto and his ascendant. So, but Pluto's more powerful than Neptune. So I guess we can say that is why. And the sun was on his side. Mars was on his side. But yeah, he had to put a lot of effort into it. But you see this T-square, sun opposite Neptune's, people, the seventh house, an open enemy trying to, dissolve his power, and squaring his Mars. So it was really, really interesting. And then at the full moon of this cycle, where the sun is at his midheaven and the moon, still a same place at his IC. And yeah, he started doing, the ad was launched July 4th to coincide with the United States Independence Day. But he's done ads in Florida and stuff in Texas, but he's really going after Ron DeSantis in Florida, who's assumed to be potentially the Republican candidate for president in 2024. So he's attempting, and you see now Mars here, and Neptune on his Chiron here, like this attempt to wound his presidential primary opponent by running attack ads in Florida. And Mercury in the 9th house, really, and it's at 0 degrees, and the South Node conjunct Neptune, like trying the negative political ads, trying to damage the brand or the image of his rivals. So the last quarter moon, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of the story, but it's very interesting. You see the sun here is on and Mercury in the 7th house. And I'm wondering, opposite is Pluto. Yeah. And I'm wondering if he's thinking about announcing his presidential run around that time. Now, will it be public, or will he tell Joe Biden? I don't know what is going to go on, but Mars will be, back at that 25th degree. It's going to station to go retrograde on October 30th. So I'm really interested to see, this is a very public part of his chart. If what we will see that comes up when Mars goes retrograde, is something going to come up? Is there going to be, some secrets revealed about him, or I don't know, we'll see. Yeah, there'll be another Mercury retrograde coming up before this, that, there's another opportunity for, things to come up, but we'll see. But I think it's very interesting on election day, Jupiter, the planet that he has on Regulus, that fixed star, will be to the degree at his MC. This is on election day. And yeah, Neptune will be as conjunct his Chiron. So Neptune, will his opponent be weaker? Yeah. The North Node will be in Aries, the sign of his North Node, right near his Saturn. And next April, there's going to be a solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries, right on his North Node in the 8th. Yeah.
There's a comment, Celeste. Rania says, the moon will be conjunct his natal Mars in March 2023. Could that also mean his emotions could get the best of him?
It's possible. It's possible. Yeah. One of the things I was wondering, hopefully not, hopefully I'm wondering about his family life as well. But he's got so much below the horizon. Like, we've never seen him lose his cool in public. So it's possible his emotions could get the best of him, but we probably will never see it.
And then Karma says, this is a cycle that started with the Mars station 24 earlier this month. Mars goes to 25 and then goes direct around mid-March.
Yep. Yeah.
Karma says, thank you. And it's interesting that the Mercury, the ruler of the MC, and the ascendant also had the eclipse on April the 30th.
Yeah. Mercury. Okay. Mercury.
It's at 11 Scorpio, and the eclipse was at 10 Taurus.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was opposite his Mercury. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Right about the time that he started launching those ads against his, strategically. So he's a Libra, but his Mercury is in Scorpio. So like coming up with the strategy to try to wound his opponent. Yeah, is not surprising. But yeah, I think this Mars retrograde cycle is going to be fascinating because one thing, Mars is not just retrograde, it's out of bounds. So it goes out of bounds this week until until May 5th, I believe, of next year. So Mars is going to be retrograde and out of bounds. It's going to be pretty wild. The Saturn-Uranus square, Saturn and Uranus are also contra-parallel. They're not just square until, I think until January. Yeah, at the beginning of January. And Mars and Pluto are contra-parallel right now until November 7th or 5th or 7th or something like that. So there's so much intense energy as we enter Scorpio season, with the ruler of Scorpio being out of bounds, retrograde, well, it's not going to go retrograde till the 30th, but yeah.
And Raina says, can you please expand on what out of bounds means?
Oh, so out of bounds is when, so the sun is the limit, and the sun's declination, it goes from 23 and something from the north to the south. So declination is more like latitude. If we think about the degrees of the zodiac, like the longitudinal degrees, it's another measure, the latitude. So when planets are parallel, they're at the same level. So if you look in the sky, when you see, two stars that look around the same level, they're at the same declination on the same side of the equator. And when they're contra-parallel, they're at the same degree, but one's to the north and one's to the south. So parallels are like secret conjunctions in the chart. Contra parallels are somewhere between a conjunction and an opposition. Yeah, but there's a level of activation that they're talking to each other when they're either parallel or contra parallel. So, oh, I said out of bounds. I'm sorry. Out of bounds is when a planet goes past the 23 of the sun. So it brings on a Uranian flavor to it. So it goes out past the declination of the sun. So I explained to you what parallel, contra-parallel, and out of bounds mean. So I hope that makes sense. So planets go out of bounds around Cancer, which is, Cancer, Gemini, around there, sometimes Leo, and then around the Capricorn, Sagittarius, I think of sometimes Aquarius too, around the, the limits of the sun. You want to add anything, Maria?
Oh, no. Well, just that a planet that goes out of bounds is like wild. Right?
Yeah.
The sun is not able to control it so much.
Yeah, it's very Uranian. It answers to itself rather than answering to the sun, which is the king. It answers to itself. So yeah, so if you have out of bounds planets in your chart, there's usually an interesting story around them. Like it can give people like really creative energy, but it can also like people who don't, who don't follow the norms in terms of that planet. Yeah, or it can be like Mars and Capricorn out of bounds can give you like tons of energy to work and like do things revolutionary your own way kind of thing.
And Karma says the eclipse of October the 25th is about the midpoint between his Mercury and Neptune.
Mercury and Neptune. October, it's at 2 Scorpio.
Yes, that's 2 Scorpio.
Yeah, so I don't think it's, oh, I think you mean the November 8th eclipse. Yeah,
Oh.
the November 8th eclipse is at 16 degrees
16. Okay.
of Taurus. So the sun will be right on the cusp of its 3rd house. So yeah, maybe there'll be some big thing he shares around then.
Mm-hmm. And
Well,
Maria?
that's the date of the midterm elections. So yeah, that's going to be wild, having the midterms with.
I don't get that. Who chose that day?
It's always the first Tuesday in November.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Maria says, Celeste, how do you calculate the moon phase families? Via an ephemeris? Is there any easy way to think about this? Let's take this upcoming new moon. We would track the moon around the fixed modalities. The new moon is to Scorpio. So we'd look for a time when moon is next at 2 degrees of Aquarius. No, it's always going to be at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So she thinks that the moon will go from 2 Scorpio to 2 Aquarius.
No, the moon is good. The moon stays the same. So the moon will be at 2 Scorpio, but the sun will be in Leo. So that will be a 1st quarter moon. So 9 months. So you say the fixed modalities, 9 months from now, so this new moon's October 25th. So in 9 months from now, that's about July 25th, there'll be a 1st quarter moon where the sun is at 2 degrees of Leo approximately, and the moon is at 2 degrees of Scorpio. 9 months later in Taurus season, another fixed sign, the sun will be at 2 degrees of Taurus, but the moon stays at 2 degrees of Scorpio. But now we're in a full moon, whereas before it starts in a new moon, not 18 months later, it's a full moon. And then 9 months after that in Aquarius, the sun will be at 2 degrees Aquarius, approximately. The moon will be at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So the moon stays at the same degree, activating your chart at the same place, but the sun is spotlighting different places in your chart. So there's like this growing story with either waxing energy or waning energy. I hope that helps make it clearer.
Yes, she says that she got it. Thanks.
Okay, good. Yeah, and it's a good practice to think about, okay, whenever there's a new moon, try to figure out in your head where that next 9-month lunation cycle will be. And yeah. And you can just you can backtrack. If you're at a 1st quarter moon, you can think, oh, what sign was the sun in 9 months ago? Oh, it was the new moon 9 months ago. So, it's easy to figure that out. Yeah. Or the full moons. Yeah, you could do it as well. Yeah. So I think I said all that. Yeah. So he's thought to be most likely up against Ron DeSantis coming this next election. Let's see. We'll see if he's even in the running. He makes it to the platform. Joe Biden says he's going to run again, but I don't think anybody's really excited about that from what it seems, because of his age primarily. And I think people are ready for some younger, more vibrant people who are not in their, late 70s and 80s to, shepherd it. Not that there's, I'm not trying to be ageist or anything, but just some younger energy in a leadership role. Yeah. Maybe even a woman. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but yeah.
Celeste, there's a comment by Amelia. She says, could you mention again about the South Node when you start a business?
About the South Node when you start a business?
Because you mentioned at the beginning that the eclipse you mentioned an eclipse that involved the south node.
Oh, okay. Oh, the south node solar eclipse can be that events that happen under that are initiated by someone else. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a business. It could be like someone approaches you to do business with them. The south node has a bit of a descendant type flavor. So acting like the descendant, acting like the other, initiate something that impacts you is possible with this south node solar eclipse. So both solar eclipse are new starts, but the north node can be a little bit more personally driven than when it's a south node solar eclipse. Could be like someone else, like, or a spouse or a child or someone that you work with, blah, 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 or the president.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Uh-huh. Any other questions about?
No questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, so these are some resources. I absolutely love Bernadette Brady's predictive astrology book. It's such a wonderful, rich resource, as well as Dietrich Pessen's Lunar Shadows and Stephen Forrest's Book of the Moon are great resources. And if you go to my website, I have a Setting Intentions with the Moon guide. It's free. That helps you with that explains a little bit more about these cycles and gives guidance about what to do at each of the new moon, first quarter, full, last quarter cycles. And yeah, you don't have to buy the book. You can, Dietrich Pessen wrote an article with Frank Clifford about these lunar gestational cycles. So you can go Google that and grab it. Because it's just a short article as well that can help you understand it better. And she gives an example of it. And these are all the ways to find me. My website is astrologybyceleste.com. And I do new moon and full moon, what do you call those? Newsletters. And yeah, the Celestial Insights podcast, I will drop in the chat for weekly guidance. I teach a program called Moon Mastery. It's 2 6-week classes that help you like dive deeper into the moon and her cycles. I mean, the moon is so powerful and so important. So if something happens and you can't see it with the transits, just go look at the moon cycle previous to, and you will see it show up. Or sometimes, like I like when, public people pass on, sometimes you don't know their birth time, but if you look at the moon cycle right before they died, you can see the story of what's going on. Yeah, I do readings, events, astrology mentoring, coaching programs. And every Sunday I'm on Instagram Live at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and I talk about current events and the relationship to astrology. And then on Mondays at the same time, I do a little talking about the astrology, and then I pull cards. That's the intuitive part for each of the zodiac signs. And then I'm on all of these different platforms. Let's see, where is my podcast link? I'll drop it in here. This is Apple, but you can.
It's also in your website.
Yeah, if you go to my website, it's on the home page. You can there's a podcast player embedded on my website. Yeah. Oh, so, Darlene, I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, many people are saying thanks, fantastic, many thanks. This was informative. It was a great presentation. I'm gonna remove the spotlight.
Great.
Okay. So are there any more questions? Thank you so much for the info. Hi, Martha. You were a bit late. You got confused with the time.
Yeah. So what about the replay? Will there be a replay available?
Yes. We always send the link with the recording in our next email. So that will be in a couple of weeks, I think. Okay, but I can send you the recording before that if you'd like to have it. Yes, but members will be able to have the recording. Yeah. Okay then.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Maria. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I see so many faces I recognize. It's been so nice. Hi, Raina. Hi, everyone.
So, well, thank you, and see you on next in a couple of weeks at Transit Talk. Everybody, it's a great opportunity to practice astrology.
It's really wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody's not a member of AFAN, it's only like $30 a year, right?
Yeah, it's very,
it's very inexpensive, and you get so many wonderful things.
Very inexpensive. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. It was nice having you, Celeste.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.